Now, were you ever officially signed to OVW WWE at one
Oh
point?
yeah,
As far as so you were, right? Okay.
oh
So
yeah.
how did that go, and how did like how long were you signed for?
It was about a year. So what happened was it was all the fake Rosie versus fake Donald Trump.
Yes, love that.
Uh,
Yes.
and I always say it is be careful what you wish for, number one, and I'll explain that in a minute. But 2006, which is all the Chad Collier stuff and everything, I would say at that point for my pro wrestling career, I was as complete of a wrestler as I could be for getting to the next stage of I need higher learning, as I call it now. And I say that as in when I produce a match and something, I need something here, I'll go ask a producer who's been around longer or bounce it off of somebody like a Jerry Lynn or talk to Fit or Terry Taylor. Like I call it higher learning. I want to do this, but what do you think? You know, you're on the right track or no, go this way. So as a worker at that point, frame, body, look, everything, what do you got for me? Like I'm going to WWE when they're in town. As far as size goes, I remember standing next to Benoit once and looking at him and going, I'm as big as he is. Like size wise, everything. If he's here, what can I do? Not saying I was, that caliber of worker, but I'm trying. Everything for me that year should have been it. And as I'm chasing that year, even with another tour of Japan, which I treated it like my last. And I came back from Japan. Harley told me you're going back. I said, okay, sweet. That's in '07. But I started really focusing on my gym and I started winding down wrestling because I thought, okay, what's left for me? There's all these giant. I'm the same size as Benoit, but they have a Benoit. They have a guy that size. Do they need me? What do I have? Again, I actually didn't have a great promo. So I know my mic work isn't great. And camps happen. There's a WWE camp. Harley always did his Harley camps. So I worked many a Harley camp, either teaching the camps, starting with the first one with Ricky Steamboat and Les Thatcher, and myself and Trevor Murdoch were the wheels for whatever they needed. We ran and then helped, multiple camps after that. And at that point, I couldn't get hired by WWE. I sent the tape in. Ted DiBiase, he vaguely remembers this, but he took a liking because his boys were down there at Harley's training, and Harley would have me go in and work with them to try to get their first match together. Teddy took a great liking to me, and the senior, and he started trying to help me out to get hired, and it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening. So '07 comes, and Mike Bucci, who had just actually came down for the last Harley camp in '06, '07, he calls up with the whole Donald Trump thing, and off of that is what got me hired. Like I did the Donald Trump thing, hit a home run with it. That's what the old man wanted. And the next night, they wanted to see me in a dark match. And a week later, I got a phone call to be shipped off. I was at Deep South. I was in Deep South for maybe a month before they shut down. I was there the night they shut down and tore all the rings out and all that good stuff. And but I had hurt my knee. Um, I had tweaked my knee, but I didn't know how bad it was, and I really tore it apart when I was wrestling. I hip tossed a guy who was 280 pounds. This guy by the name of Keith Walker, and I could have just let him go, but it was in me to at least get him over. And I think he might have landed on his head had I not tried to. When I
Yep.
muscled him over, 280 pounds, and it bent my knee to the side and it ripped my ACL to shreds. And so injured right away, right in the developmental, injured right away. And I was under Dr. Tom at the time. And then ended up in OVW and ended up coming back exactly 6 months later after surgery. And mind you, I rushed it because my knee hurt like hell. But all I could think about was I have to get to work. I don't want to be one of those guys that's just, I was dying to wrestle, all that good stuff, and it just wasn't meant to be. So that's the careful what you wish for. You always want to be nominated. You always want to be nominated. Man, I could have been that guy. Give me a chance. Give me a chance. I was 34 at the time. So for their age limit at the time, it was no bueno. It was no, it
Right.
was too late for me. Had I been 30, had I also, instead of OVW, when Deep South closed, had I gone to Florida, likely would have had a better chance. Uh, my actual hometown was still Eldon, Missouri, where Harley's school is at the time. So it was Louisville was closer to home. So going to Florida would have just really crazed out the world there a little bit. So is what it is. Is what it is. I wouldn't be where I am now with everything happening if all that didn't happen the way it did.
Now, as far as Deep South closing, did Johnny Ace have you show up in like your nice clothes and basically take the place apart? Because I know a bunch of the guys are complaining that why didn't you tell us we're there like to close the place down? We're like wearing decent clothes. We're like ruining our clothes here.
I think so. I think it was protocol. You knew you were supposed to be there for a meeting, and
Yeah.
I was on crutches. I actually was traveling back from Alabama that day from Birmingham from going to see Dr. Dugas with my knee. Had a just like an update to see how things were. So we got back, changed, and then lo and behold, the place closed. So, but I got to have a beer at Brad Armstrong that night, so that's one of my fondest memories. Brad Armstrong is one of the greatest workers of all time. I
Yep.
employ every wrestler out there. If you're listening to this, go watch him. I wholeheartedly give shit to Scott and Brian Armstrong, Road Dogg, every time I see them, because I'll look at them and say, Brad was the best one, right? And they both agree. Oh, yeah, duh, But I just like to give him shit. But Brad was one of my favorites. And the fact that I got to see him there, learn from him a little bit, and just tie up with him. Just lock up with me, Brad. And I'm like, oh,
Yep.
locking up with Brad Armstrong. Like, legit, no joke, is like in my top 5 of wrestlers that I'll study. Just the way he works. Yeah, I got to have a beer with Brad Armstrong at Hooters that night after the place closed, and just to
Nice.
listen to him tell jokes and just be him